We love you!
Hello and welcome to Tribe Talk, the Galway Hurling Podcast, with me, Patrick Earley and David Connors, where each week we'll discuss and divulge all the goings-on in Galway hurling. We'll be taking an in-depth look at the club scene and of course focusing on inter-county, in this, Shane O'Neill's first year at the helm, all of which we'll do in the company of some special guests and former Galway greats. So do come along and join us on Tribe Talk, Galway's dedicated hurling podcast.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Tribe Talk. With another busy episode on the cards this week, previewing senior and intermediate semi-finals, a huge weekend of action ahead. But first this week we're delighted to be joined by probably a man who created maybe the biggest story in Galway Senior Championship this year so far, anyway, we'll say. A year previously under his tutelage, Ahascragh-Fohenagh had an ear brush with relegation, but this year, kind of whirlwind journey a year later, and they're made the final eight of the Galway Senior Hurling Championship. Seriously incredible stuff altogether. I'm delighted to be joined by Ahascragh-Fohenagh manager Kevin Ward. Kevin, it's great to have you.
Hi Dave, how are you?
Good. How's all with yourself? How are you keeping?
No loss at all. It's funny there you mentioned the relegation. It's a fine line, isn't it?
Jeez, I tell you, a short 12 months is this, or was it long as well with the COVID?
It was a long 3 or 4 weeks in relegation. After that, it was short.
Firstly, I'll start. There's a sort of rumour going around that they have a statue or halfway up of you in Ahascragh there. Is there any truth in that, or is it? Am I hearing things?
There's a lot of lads down in Ahascragh that'll be getting statues before me, so there's a couple of minions there that I think are well in line for that. But no, we had a good year. It worked out fairly well. It's a pity it couldn't have gone on another couple of weeks.
Exactly. But I suppose, before we tip into all that, I suppose I might just get a bit on your backstory. Sarsfield's clubman, obviously. You're probably son of Tony, former Galway Camogie manager, an All-Ireland winner as well at the time. Family steeped in hurling and Camogie, brothers and sisters heavily involved with Sarsfield's. I suppose you had no choice but to get involved in it the whole way up, I suppose.
No, that's just it. From the age of 5 or 6, Dad has been dragging us along to training sessions with Galway and the few club teams he was involved with, and then our own club here. So yeah, you hadn't much choice. If you weren't into hurling, you were nearly thrown outside. So it was that or nothing.
Just kind of before kind of anything else we tip into it, just a bit on your own playing career. Then Kevin, you obviously hurled for Sarsfields at underage.
This bit will be short, as the brother just said to me. You don't get involved in management at 31 or 32 unless 1 you're injured or 2 you're no good. And I had no injuries, David, so I think that tells the tale. I suppose I was lucky enough when we were growing up. We had a fairly good group. You had the likes of Carl, Kevin Hines, and a few lads like that. So we had a bit of success coming up along. We won a couple of under 21s, and I suppose then we won with a few of the greats, the likes of Hopper McGrath, Brendan Cooney, Peter Cooney, Lord Mercy on him, the two Kellys. So apart from that, I spent most of my hurling career playing junior, really.
Sure, Jesus, but you probably learned a lot. You know, I mean, down in junior, if nothing else, you learned probably how to look after yourself, if nothing else.
You do all right. I hurling with the likes of Hopper and them lads, that you learn a lot there, all right. And even I suppose training with the seniors, training with the likes of Kevin Hines and even Cathal Murray and all of them lads, you learn heaps, yeah.
Yeah. Was it kind of an ambition of yours to kind of always get into management, Kevin, or was it just was it you following in your father's footsteps, or how had you set your sights on it kind of young, or did you kind of just kind of fall into it really, like a lot of lads do in clubs?
Well, look, like you said, I suppose following Dad around, it was sort of, it'll be always there in the back of your mind, but it happened by chance. Then our junior A's had no manager, and I think they were trying to stop me from pushing me to take the job. So I took it on as player manager the same year. They eventually got me out of playing. So we ended up, it was the first year where they were playing 2 games and then the summer off. So it was pretty strong the same year. We had Carl, Dean Scahill, Darren Scahill and all of them. We ended up getting to the final v
Turlockmore was it,
yeah. A Turlockmore team that was joint captain by Gary Burke and Ronan Badger. So that shows you the quality of the same year. And I suppose it started from there, really, yeah.
Yeah, and kind of from there, is it something you kind of grow to really enjoy now, or is it something you would have a huge passion for, kind of looking
Yeah,
after teams? Yeah,
I do. I love it, to be honest. I love the organising, the managing, and even the tactical side of stuff, trying to break teams down. Yeah, I do. I really enjoy that, right? Yeah.
and from there, then how did the Ahascragh thing come about, or how did it come to fruition? We'll say.
I suppose not long after that Junior A final, then Shane Kennelly, he's a couple of connections. He approached me about Ahascragh-Fohenagh, and at first I sort of thought it was a bit of a piss take, I suppose, to be honest. But no, then I went down and I met a couple of lads, and I suppose the chance of coaching Cahill and Porrick-Mannion, I'd lie if I say anything else, but the chance of coaching them, you couldn't really turn it down, to be honest.
Yeah, was that like a kind of a reason to it's probably a next step in your progression, like to step up, you know what I mean, from junior to senior. It's a jump nonetheless, because it's just the levels in preparation are probably a fair bit different as well.
Oh, huge, yeah. And being in a different club as well, different environment, was a huge step. And I suppose it was a bit of a culture shock to myself as much as anything. I was probably a bit confident going into it, thinking this will be fine, it'll be like the junior, we'll cruise through it, and couple of defeats along the way and you end up in relegation. It doesn't be long bringing you down to earth.
Yeah. What were your thoughts of the club kind of when you arrived, or you know what I mean? Like, a lot of lads get different receptions at various clubs, and you know what I mean? Like, but how did you find it walking in the doors, probably your first evening of training there? Or
I suppose the first evening, very nervous and everything. Wouldn't have, well, I'd have known a few of them I'd have gone to a few of their games. I work with one or two Ahascragh lads there, so Ahascragh-Fohenagh, a few of their lads, so I'd have gone to their games, but I didn't know too many of them, and you'd be nervous going in, but once you get into the session, then you're on the pitch, you're right at home, you don't really mind.
Yeah, and you kind of like training players and kind of improving them and everything, Kevin. I take it like that's kind of be a big passion for yours as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's it. You'd love nearly taking a project on one or two players and trying to improve something on them, and when it comes off with them, then the satisfaction out of that is brilliant. Yeah.
I suppose first year alone, maybe it might have been the easiest. It was a rocky enough road, we'll say, as you started. Like, you had a difficult group campaign. I know you got to draw against Ardmore, which was, you know what I mean, Ardmore were flying it at the time, we'll say, but you managed to get a draw over there. But the group, we'll just kind of look at the group a second. It was probably a baptism of fire for you in a sense, really.
Yeah, the first game being a local derby against Pierce's, and I think we nearly got too much caught up in that ourselves, and Pierce's just came out and hurled us, and we never really, while we were in the game, they were always comfortable. They kept us at arm's length. And then the second game, we hurled very well against Ardmore, and unfortunately, after getting that positive result in, we had a break of 3 months, so that was all out the window, and you were back in facing Crowell, and that just that didn't go well.
Geez, looking ahead now, it was a difficult enough group on paper, we'll say. You know what I mean? Like, you've two teams now that are probably, you know, they're serious. They'd be decent senior A teams, other than just a bit of misfortune, we'll say. Like, you know.
Yeah, you have like Crowell and Ardmore, or look at their established senior A teams, and right at home up there, and hopefully ourselves will be the same way. And then Athenry and Beha, we were unlucky again. Athenry will hit a couple of soft goals, and that left us in with a do or die again. Beha, a draw would have done us, and we led them from minute 1 to 63, and Kevin Keehan stepped up with a free from 35 yards out and roofed it. So that dropped us into the relegation final, as they call it. So that was where we ended up again, Abbey Knockmy.
It's I can tell you from experience, it's a torturous thing. You can see them late goals, and they're nothing to break your heart much more than them anyway. That's for sure. But
but they worked out for us this year, so it went full circle, thankfully.
I suppose then you were kind of left with a real battle against Abbey, like, you know what I mean. Your first day, you know what I mean. It kind of you dug yourselves out of jail in a sense. I think was it Cahill landed a goal there. He blasted home a goal in the first year. Have I that right?
He definitely got a goal the second day. He got a wonder goal the second day. The first day was real nip and tuck. It was pint for pint, and they hit us we were a pint up going into injury time, I think, and they hit us for 2 pints to lead. And to be a lad, he was a transfer in, Barry Farrer. He got the ball about 60 yards out, which I think it was Porrick-Mannion on his shoulder, and the whole place was roaring past it. But he took on the shot, fair play to him, and it went over. And Christy Brown told me walking off the pitch anyway, if that didn't go over, you were gone. So that was how close we were to being down intermediate.
You were relieved to get the replay, so you must have been massively relieved walking off that time.
Oh, it was, yeah. It was a huge slice of luck, to be honest, yeah.
Yeah. Just kind of, but I suppose then kind of you probably provided you with a few learnings from the first day. Like you know, Jesus, this is going to be a serious battle for the second day coming out. Like, and we're going to have to improve. And probably was easy to get a message across like that, I'm sure.
Well, that's what it was. It was literally hurling and tactics, and a lot of that just goes out the window in a relegation game, and it's just a battle, and who wants it more. And that's what it was, a battle until Cahill got a wonder goal, and I think Ronan Kelly got a couple of puck outs later on that just got us over the line. So it was that tight again. The replay, I think we got over by one.
Yeah, just on contrast there, you mentioned like intermediate, like Jesus, it's fine margins as we'll say. You were a puck at the ball maybe from going out of dropping into the intermediate ranks, and now you're in the last you are in the last stage, should I say, the championship, and you'll be hurling senior A next year. It's fair small margins this Galway championship at times, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Like Thomas's and Turlough and Limellows and a few of them are probably a little bit ahead of the pack. Capitagle and them, they are probably a little bit ahead of the pack. But from nearly 6 or 7 down right the way to 20, anyone can beat anyone. Like I think we were rated 23 coming into the year, and I think along the way we took out 17, 19, whatever, and all the way down. So it is right tight down along. Anyone can take anyone on their day. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of in the second year back, then they must have been encouraged with what you were bringing to the table because they were delighted. I remember I was doing a media day and was chatting to Pádraig just ahead of it there before the club championship, and I was just asking him, "Were you back in this year?" And he said you are. And by his account, anyway, they were delighted to have you back. So you must be working. They must have a positive opinion of you even before this year, we'll say.
Yeah, I wasn't sure after the relegation, all right, with the phone be ringing again. But yeah, in fairness, they were back on, and they were very eager themselves. Pre-season, I think they were right eager to make a bigger impact on the championship this year, and they put in the work. The strength and conditioning was a bigger thing this year. We were in there to Neil O'Toole, and they put in that work pre-COVID, and even through COVID, the work had gone in, and yeah, it went a bit better this year anyway.
Would you put it down to that, or you know what I mean, the kind of improvement in performance, or what would you put it down to? And maybe there's aspect to having the boys as well there for, you know what I mean, your Pádraig, your Cahill, your Sean Blaheen, and driving standards on and training, like maybe bringing an extra dimension to it, we'll say.
In the head there, David, having the two boys and Sean at training just to drive things along and bring the standards up and demand more of everyone else, that was huge. But even outside of them three, I think the rest of the players got a lot of confidence out of staying up last year. The likes of your Stephen Kelly, Mark Kelly, Noel Wards, the likes of them, even the younger lads coming in, Ross Hannon, Nigel Lynn, Robbie Green, they were big pluses as well this year to drive the whole thing on. And adding them, it just gave us that little bit more strength and depth, I suppose, this year too.
I suppose from the lads' point of view, and probably for yourself, it must be a bit easier as well. Like, I suppose we've had an example now of what a split season might kind of look like in terms of inter-county, and probably from a club manager's point of view, would it be something that you'd prefer to stay around now, or how would you'd imagine after a year you'd be probably in favour of it, you know what I mean, having full access to the boys, and in fairness to them, they're not getting pulled and dragged between two sets of camps. I know everyone kind of wants the lads as much as you can, but at times there's nothing you can do, like, you know what I mean, you kind of have to try and fight your corner at the one sense as well, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I think we're definitely all for the split season anyway. It's a lot easier on club players to know that they're off for so many months. They can organise their stags, weddings, holidays, whatever need be. It's easier on girlfriends and wives and stuff too. And like and then just to have the lads at training every evening, and like they're serious clubmen and they'll always give everything for Ahascragh-Fohenagh, but at the same time they have to be, like Pádraig is Galway captain, they have to give their bit to Galway as well. So they'll always be pulled that way while it's the old system. But hopefully they leave it the way it is, and it's a lot cheaper on clubs in terms of physio bills and even paying the likes of me to go down and do that. Like it's a big plus for clubs all around, I think, anyway. And look at the standard of the hurling this year, I think was way up as well. Like some of the games, I managed to get into the Sarsfield-Turlough game in Athenry and go to club game as I was at in a long, long time anyway.
It was a cracker, all right, and I'd say there was a few more lads that might have leapt the wall here or there as well to join you inside. But
thankfully, I didn't have to leap the wall. I got a snooker ticket, all right.
You're not too bad. You're not too bad. So, but no. I suppose just kind of one aspect for I know there's plenty of other lads in the squad as well. But I suppose one of the big talking points from kind of an outsider looking in like myself and someone who'd be kind of looking at games and trying my best to analyse them would have been your decision to kind of make a few positional changes between your main lads, like say taking like say Pádraig and you know what I mean, one of the best defenders in the country, like and putting them into attack. We'll say, and I know Cahill was kind of operating around the middle third, but he was in my eyes he was operating a bit deeper than you normally would see him. We'll say, and Sean at centre back, like I suppose with no supporters in, it might have been a bit easier, but there might be. And I suppose the winning also helped as well. But you could have left yourself up for a bit of criticism there. It was a brave move, Kevin. Like, what was your thinking behind it, or what was your management team's thinking behind it? You mind me asking?
Yeah, you just said it there, management team, because I suppose I'm getting a lot of credit because my name wrote down as manager for it. But Niall Murray, Paddy Hartigan, and Kevin Green there that are with me, I'd nearly give them most of the credit for the moves because they were fighting it. And to be honest, I was quite against some of it, but. I suppose Ahascragh-Fohenagh over the few years, their system was pretty. Everyone knew Pádraig was going to be dropping off as sweeper, sort of try and tie down Cahill, Sean, you know, and everyone nearly they were becoming a bit predictable. And the lads were fighting. We need to add something new to up the pitch. And Cahill had gone so well then with Galway around the middle of the park. And look at Sean, he has the physique and everything and he's only 20 to make a fine centre back in time. Like so, I suppose we tried it in a challenge game and. Sean went really well, and sure the two boys were flying, so we let it go again, and we played Portumna, and we went fairly well in the first half against Portumna. Now they took us for the second half, which made us doubt it a bit, but on their day they can do that to anyone, I guess. But we stuck with it then, and look, it wasn't brilliant every day, but I think when you're trying something, you need to stick with it, and it paid dividends, I suppose, to get us out of the group anyway and get us up Senior A.
Just even on that, there's probably I know that when a lot of lads there's a narrative out there in Ahascragh, like for when surrounding Ahascragh, and you kind of even touched upon it yourself that there was a kind of predictability element. Like Pádraig could probably be looking for Sean or Cahill, say, you know what I mean, when he has possession. But this year, I noticed kind of like there was a lot more lads stepping up to the plate. Like a lot of the kind of unheralded heroes will say, your Stephen Kelly's, your Owen Delaney's, lads you mentioned already, like, your Ronan Kelly's, your Mark Kelly, like lads like this, you know what I mean, that mightn't have been, well known in the county. They kind of they made themselves known this year, we'll say. And you had a great spread of scores in most of your games, to be honest with you. And it must have been great to see as well from a management point of view, on the sideline.
Yeah, I'd nearly say even the system they have been playing have probably been not helping some of them players, the likes of your Mark Kelly. I think he said it to me in one of the sessions that it's great to be actually playing with six forwards in terms of we have more room and and it has helped the likes of him. I think Ross Hannon, them up in the forwards, it has helped them big time. Just it's man on man then up there, and I suppose when you have the likes of Pádraig and Cahill, then they draw a little bit of attention, which creates a bit more space. And when you have Sean then. Owen Delaney, Stephen Kelly, Larry Tully, when they're going so well at the back, it just makes it easy to leave it as is.
Yeah, I suppose you win your first game, you know what I mean, and it's kind of like, what's the feeling? Is it kind of relief at the start, or you're like, Jesus, we're onto something here, and we can go on a bit of a run, like, or kind of what were you thinking after your first win, we'll say?
Well, I suppose before it, like a lot of people probably don't believe it now, but our goal was Senior A, and that was what we set out. So Pierce's first day out, we took it like we didn't take it as much of it like a derby game as we did last year's first round. We just took it as a game, and we went out and we hurled fairly well the first half, but probably only had a 3-point lead playing into a gale the second half. We got a goal straight away, then Ross Hannon, a brilliant goal, and it just kicked us on our way really. And the main thing it did is it gave the lads huge confidence. I think I remember Dad said to me after one of the games late on the year, after we getting 2 more late goals, he said, last year you sort of looked like you didn't know how to win, whereas nearly this year after the first win, we nearly looked like we didn't know how to lose in a way. It was just winning became a habit in a way, and it worked well.
Yeah, because just kind of, I didn't see your game now in the second round, say, against Kinladeem and Leitrim, but I'm led to believe you weren't as impressive. So it kind of, maybe I'm wrong now. Maybe you could tell me you can pull me up there, because I actually didn't see the game, but just found the reports I've been reading and stuff like that. But again, like you said, you managed to dig it out of the fire, and it kind of sets you up then as well. You know what I mean? And if nothing else, sometimes a mediocre performance but getting the win can do a lot for a group as well, because Jesus shows we're not as good as we thought we were either. You know what I mean? And we've still plenty to work on.
Yeah, I think it was nearly the most important performance of the year, actually, in a way, because last year when teams got on top of us, we were nearly a beaten ticket. Once we went to 4 or 5 points down, that was it. We nearly dropped the heads, I suppose, as management and players, and we were bet straight away. Whereas this year, I think Leitrim hit us for 1-2 early on. Brian Malloy was on fire. They were moving well, but the water break, which I'm not always in favour of and everything like that, but it came at a great time. We got them in. We got to have our water break, but we got to have our little chat with them. And I suppose even the players as leaders, Cahill, Porrick, Stephen Kelly and them, they took control of it, and they said, look, lads, we need to just start winning puck outs, get control of that middle third. And we drew it back. We were level by the second water break. And I think the 15 minutes from there to the end was possibly nearly our best 15 minutes of the year. That's, I think we hit them for maybe 1-7 to 3 or 4 points or whatever it was near the end of the game. So it wasn't a great performance for 45 minutes, but the heart they showed was nearly the most pleasing part.
But there you go. And then it kind of set up, well, you know what I mean? Jesus, there was a bit of celebrations after that alone, knowing you were, not even say it, but out of the group, and, and it set up a do or die, we'll say, against Mulla, for Senior A. Like, that must have been, there was a bit of weight nearly taken off your shoulders at that point, and you could probably, go out and enjoy it a small bit. Now, enjoy it might be the wrong word, but, go out and maybe savor the game a small bit more. And, you're in a, you know what I mean? It's kind of something like a free roll for you more than anything else. Like, even if you don't win, you know what I mean? It's still been a reasonably satisfactory year, we'll say.
Yeah, that's just it. There was a weight off the shoulders. Like, our last group game last year was against Beha, and it was, if you lose, you're in relegation. Our last group game this year, if you lose, you're in the preliminary, which was the first time in the history of the club. So it was a lovely position to get into it. But at the same time, the big focus was still Senior A. That was our goal. And another game, then again, Mulla, where we probably hurled very well at times, but just couldn't put the ball over the bar. I think I think I was messaging yourself. You messaged me afterwards saying about the wides. I think we had 18 wides. We created 40 chances or something like that, and just whatever it was, the ball just wasn't going over. But up stepped the two boys late on. They kept going, and Nigel got a goal to level it, and 30 seconds later, Porrick, that was us home and dry again.
It was just incredible, though. Do you know what I mean? Because I was at the game. I was covering it for the paper, should I say? And just like, it was such a pity that there wasn't a crowd there, because it would have been a great moment.
Yeah.
It would have been an unbelievable moment for the parish. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because you had your difficulties the year before, we'll say, but just something like this to, it's a big deal getting promoted to Senior A, because you're really mixing with the heavyweights, we'll say. And it would have been a result to savour, for the whole parish. It must have been disappointing from, like, not even as yourself, as maybe someone who's coming in from the outside, but some of the management team there, who would have soldiered for years and maybe wouldn't have had, family and friends around to celebrate afterwards with. It must have been a bit tough in a sense.
Yeah, that is the one disappointment with the whole run, that we'll say there's some really, really serious clubmen down there, like the likes of Kevin Gavin, Sean Kane, the top table, Michelle Healy and them, like, and Kevin didn't even make it to that game, like, and he was there when we got into the relegation, when we were put in the relegation final last year. They were all at the right there after the match saying, look, it'll come right, and giving you motivation. And for them not to be able to experience the euphoria we got out of that Mulla result was very disappointing. And it would have been great to have few hundred Ahascragh-Fohenagh people there coming onto the pitch, celebrating with their families and everything like that. That would have been brilliant. But we did as players. We fairly we had a good hour or two after the game. We enjoyed ourselves anyway.
And a substantial meal, I'm sure, as well.
A substantial meal, yeah. And we did. €9 paid.
That's it. But you didn't have much time to kind of, you know what I mean, to to even savour it in, because Jesus Christ, you had, like, I suppose in a lot of people's eyes, Craughwell coming down the tracks, and to most teams in the championship, Craughwell are a daunting prospect. They have a serious attack, and you know what I mean, they can blow teams away in it. And just kind of, for me, at the game again myself now, I wasn't actually working, but I was in watching it. and just kind of, to be honest with you, it never looked like you were going to win it, but you kept hanging in there, and Jesus, they were never out of sight in you, in fairness to you. And I remember, I think it was at the last water break, and I think it was Sean Blaine was speaking now, because the way things are at the moment, you can hear a lot. So just from a management point of view, we can hear some of the things that are being said. But he just kind of kept driving home the message that, geez, even if they score, we get a score back, and we keep driving it in, and we keep putting it out there, and you hang in, and nearly almost like a carbon copy of the Mulligan game, you snatch 2 late goals again, and you win it. Like, it's just an incredible game, Kevin. Really, like, wasn't it just an incredible scenes for a finish?
Yeah, I suppose getting Crowell, first of all, after the beating us by 14 points last year, I suppose it was a good game in a way to get that. Look at, let's see how much we've improved in a year. That was the big thing. Let's show everyone how much we've improved. And then the game itself, they got a goal early on. But to be fair to our lads, I think after 21 minutes, Crowell only had 1 point scored. It was 2-1 to like 5 points. So we had hurled fairly well. But from there, I think from 21 to maybe 40 or that, they just totally took over. And look, they could have had us out of sight, really. Our lads, fair play, they stayed right in there. But I remember the game that when Niall Lynn came on, one of the minors, Niall Lynn was in beside him, and he kept saying, it's going to come. We're going to get our goal. It's going to come. And I suppose it just shows you the belief that the young lads had got, and everyone had got out of it. But I remember when Sean Blaine went down late on, he got a belt. I asked the linesman what's left, and he said 3 minutes. And in my own head, I was like, yeah, let's see it out nearly in a way. But we got the goal 30 seconds later, and suddenly I was looking up at the scoreboard saying, geez, we could get another one here. And to be honest, a few people said to me after the game, you were very cool. I wasn't cool. I was in total shock. I didn't. It was pure disbelief. I was standing there saying, geez, is this really after happening again? I was going to do the lot on the way home, and whatever
Yeah, just on that coolness, because just kind of as someone who'll be watching on from the stands, will say that you kind of carry yourself in is it kind of a cool persona, or calm, if nothing else. Like, we can all let a roar here or there, but there's probably a few more lads like that have kind of are up and down the line a bit more than yourself in Ahascragh there, and you're kind of maybe the main charge with keeping things on the wraps, we'll say.
Yeah, there's a few referees that probably wouldn't agree with you out there on being cool. But yeah, I suppose with Ahascragh-Fohenagh, I do leave that to Shane Kennelly and Kev agreed. I do let them go mad, and I do try and act the peacemaker then. And I know, I suppose when you're an outsider coming in, you probably have to carry yourself a little bit better. I suppose you're representing another club and stuff, and I suppose I'd be a bit wary of that, not effing and blinding at too many referees. No, it happens. It still does happen, as Liam Gordon and a few of the refs will vouch for. But I try and be a small bit cooler, right, if I can.
Yeah, there's no Jurgen Klopp, but probably one of your heroes running down the sideline or anything like that.
He's no hero, mate. We'll leave that there.
We're better off. We're better off, because if we start there, we could be in trouble anyway. But
could be a long chat, David.
That's for sure, Kevin. Just I suppose then, Jason, you're almost scratching your head. You're in the quarter final, and there's Cappy waiting for you. You know what I mean? Like, kind of, Jesus, if nothing else, I suppose there was probably a bit of tired bodies, because you'd given everything right to the end of the last few games, and you know what I mean. And like, you stuck with it for, you know what I mean, for the first half, and you'd built up a bit of a lead in Ballinasloe, but it just kind of, it never happened for you in the second half, Kevin, really, did it? Like, and I suppose Porrick maybe picked up a bit of a knock as well, and maybe a few more mitigating circumstances, we'll say, and it just didn't click on the day for you, would say.
No, look at it, and not to make excuses, Capitagal, they came out the second half and they got their tactics right, and I suppose we didn't get ours right, and they deserved their victory for a finish. But yeah, we had a good first half, and I suppose the killer about the first half is we had 2 good goal chances, Porrick and Ronan Kelly, and we didn't take either. If we'd taken one of them and maybe gone in 6 points up rather than 3, it would have made it a small bit harder for Cappy. But Porrick's injury, look at Toes, he's huge, and for him to be he was carrying it from the first minute, really, and we had to leave him full forward for most of the game. If we could have had him in that middle third, if nothing else, it draws attention from Capitagal and creates room for us inside, which is what we wanted. But second half came, we got the first point, we went 4 up. I said, lovely, we're in a good place here, but they turned us over then on 2 short puckouts, and I think that was a nail in the coffin then. And the weird thing was then, excuse me, 48 minutes gone, we were still only 3 or 4 points down, and I sort of said, geez, are we going to get another couple of goals here? I was looking to the heavens saying, geez, we could be still in something here. But look at credit to Cappy. They was sent off. They pulled everyone back the field. And I think in a way we probably made heroes of Patrick Egan and Declan Cronin, which was harder for me to take. Declan is living here in the house most of the time. He's gone out with the sister. So he was thankful of a lot of the ball we were hitting into him anyway. So I think we even got him in the team of the week there with yourselves that week. So yeah, no, but credit to Cappy. Look, they're in their 4th semi-final, and that doesn't happen by chance. They're a good team, and I think they'll know. Turlock will know, or not Turlock.
Thomas
will know all about it the weekend if they get over them.
Yeah, that's for sure. Just kind of reflecting on the year then as a whole, like it must be, it's a bit surreal in a point. I know you kind of set your goal out for Senior A at the start of the year, but they're setting a goal out, and then there's actually achieving it is a completely different thing. You know what I mean? It must be, as I said, I used the word surreal already. Would it be similar to that now on reflection, or how would you kind of sum it up?
I suppose the way it worked out, it was a bit surreal, getting 2 late goals in 2 games in a row to get there. That part of it is, truthfully, getting up Senior A, I'm not shocked, because there's like 8 of the 18 that played Senior Championship for us this year are actually under 21. They won an under 21B early on the year as well, and some of the hurlers down there they'd walk into any club team. I keep mentioning the likes of Mark Kelly, Stephen Kelly, Ross Hannon, Ronan Kelly, Larry Tully, Owen Delaney. Like, these lads, they'd literally walk into any club team, and I think just the bit of confidence they got this year, it really stood to them as the campaign went on. So I suppose it was surreal, but I'm not shocked that that's where they are. They're good enough to be there, really.
Yeah, I suppose the big job now is not to stand still either or rest on your laurels. It's about driving it on that bit further for next year. I suppose the goal next year would be maybe to cement your place in it, maybe, or would you kind of look a bit further than that?
Well, to be honest, we haven't even sat down and looked at next year or anything like that. But the most pleasing part of it all was we did meet as a group after it, and the disappointment in the players themselves that the run was over and that there was a chance there to go another step and get to a semi-final, which would have been just unbelievable altogether. And they were genuinely disappointed. A lot of people might have thought that, I know bonus territory does be used a lot and it'll be said a lot, but it wasn't to them. To them, it was, they had as much to lose in the quarterfinal as Cappy did. It was a quarterfinal to lose and a chance of a semi-final. So I think going ahead next year, it is to cement their place in Senior A. That has to be the big goal for the group next year. And I think the better teams they play, actually, the better they'll be. Like, sometimes down in relegation dogfights doesn't bring the best out in younger. I think for these lads, the more Crowells, Thomases, Sarsfields, Turlock Moores, the more of these teams they play, the more it'll bring them on. And look, they might not be at the standard of some of the teams yet, but I think give them a couple of years up there and hopefully they will get up to that standard very fast.
Absolutely, and sure, you'd give anyone a game on their day. Like, you'd be confident that when you players of the quality of some of the lads you just mentioned already, like as you said, they'd walk into a lot of other club teams. But just, I suppose your year isn't over yet. You're a busy man, busy with the camogie at the weekend. You're back where you want to be. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, we are. Look at it's. I suppose I'm lucky that Hopper, Olive Costello, John Noon, they're great for me. I can tip away and work away with Ahascragh-Fohenagh and they keep it going, and there isn't, no one passes any notice in when I cruise back in around for a quarter-final or semi-final like that without having a lot. No, we are. We got to the Holy Grail last year. We got over the line, All-Ireland champions, but unfortunately Galway is so competitive. Our first game back this year was Ardrahan and we scraped over it after extra time, and then we had our old favourites Mulla again the second game, so nothing easy there, and we managed to get over that, which put us straight through to a semi-final. And Athenry ran us all the way. They pushed us the pin of our collar, and we were lucky, I suppose, in a way to get through it. Ardrahan, on the other hand, blew a fancy door and more team out of the water. So we're looking forward to a final, but it's, while a lot of people think Sarsfield All Ireland champions, they're going to win their club championship quite comfortably. Unfortunately, it's not like that, and Ardrahan are a huge battle ahead again on Sunday for us.
That's for sure. Just finally, then, just on Sarsfield's a second, I suppose, between your father, Hopper, Cathal Murray, Eamon Cleary, yourself, what's serious pedigree of young? Well, not young. We won't call your father maybe an Hopper that young.
Murray's not young either.
No, he's not. But you must have something in the water down there for breeding. Should I say? Quality managers, you know what I mean? Like, what's the secret down there? It's is it that you kind of, I think I kind of asked you this question before. It's probably you live and breathe hurling down there more than anything else, and it's probably the first thought in the morning and maybe the first thought in the evening. Girlfriends and wives won't want to hear that, but
they definitely come second.
They definitely, yeah. But what is it down there? It's probably just lads congregating the pitch and just constantly talking hurling amongst yourselves, and you know what I mean. Just throughout probably your whole career, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, you said it there. We don't have a lot more down here, only hurling. Like I work in Galway there with you have lads from Turlockmore and different places like that, and you have football and you have soccer and rugby and other things. Here we've hurling, that's it. And you talk about all the managers we have, go back to 2015, and our management team was Frankie Madden, Borrick Earls and Cathal Murray, and I was lucky enough to be involved in the backroom team there, just helping them out at stats. And what I learned from them even that year was just huge. I used to follow Frankie Madden around doing all his drills and everything, and all I was at was a sponge trying to soak up information. And then John Hardy came in and you're learning from him, and then I suppose even following Dad around to sessions and taking that in. And then you have Noel Kelly, Eamon Cleary now at the moment, and Mickey D with our own seniors.
Yeah.
It's just, I suppose it's the natural progression. Once you're not good enough to hurl, it's how can I stay involved? And Cleary was getting too old, and Acro's crippled, so the only hope the two of them had was to go into management to stay involved, and that's they're good at it. So we're lucky that we do have quite a few lads that are making a bit of a name for themselves. And sure, we saw what Murray did last year with the Galway Camogies. Look at he led the seniors back to win the All Ireland, and was very close to doing the same with the intermediates. And sure, he's the same. He just lives and sleeps, drinks camogie, hurling, whatever it is, and that's the way we all are. And we're lucky, I suppose, in this club that the camogie it gets as much respect as the hurling does. And I suppose having the likes of Hopper over it is huge for that, because the interest in the camogie here is, I'm not lying when I say it's just as much as the hurling. For the county final Sunday, from Friday on, the messages start coming from everyone in the club. And sure, when you have the likes of on the panel now, you have Joe Cooney's daughter, Porrick Kelly's daughter, Tommy Kinney's daughter, it's the next group coming again. So that's what we have here in Sarsfields. We've hurling and camogie, and if you don't do them, unfortunately, you've nothing. You're no part, really.
Yeah, that was supposed to be my final question, but just when I think of it there, just your own father with doing this here as well. Jesus, it's just, is there anything at all spoke about else at the dinner table? They're going fierce well, and they're in with a real shout now as well, aren't they?
Yeah, look, the result they got at the weekend was unreal, especially without Dara injured, and they already missing Richie English from earlier on the year. I suppose to be the equivalent to me down in Ahascragh-Fohenagh losing Cathal and Porrick, and they've just got on with it. They had a serious result at the weekend, and they're looking forward to the Piercy now. And as you say, does anything else we talked about here at home 2 weeks ago there? Laura and Ciara were looking forward to a county semi-final. Alan was looking forward to a county quarter-final. I was looking forward to a county quarter-final, and Dad was looking forward to a county quarter-final. So no, there's nothing else really talked about. Mam and Ian, I suppose they'll support us, but they mightn't be involved, but they'll still support us as well. So that's we talk about nothing else here at home. And I suppose it's great to have Dad there to the bit of advice. I remember last year in the relegation, I was happy enough to know that he was there over the wire behind me, and just even the odd phone call, and odd phone call on that, to have him there was great as well. Yeah.
Mighty. Look at Kevin, you're going to wait around for our review show coming up here. So, but just thanks a million for your time. It was great chatting with you, and I'm sure your house will be keeping a close eye on the senior A draw next year. Sarsfields and Ahascragh out of the head, and there could be a bit of fireworks at home.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. Thanks a million. Yeah, sure. We'll hang around and we'll see how it goes.
Perfect.
Right.
Right, move on to the review section. So we have Kevin Ella, as we say, Kevin Chucky Hayes on the line again. Kevin, how's the crack?
Howdy, Dad. Dave, how's things? Good to see you back to your own podcast anyway.
Jesus, yeah, you kept the fort alive you kept it well alive without being. I think there was record views when I was gone, was there? I'd imagine Patrick was telling me he was saying there was record views in my absence.
I'm glad he talks to you, because he rang me and he didn't tell me you weren't around. And I was like, all right, yeah, the sound.
The record views was because of Kevin's comeback with the juniors, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've struck too many balls in the junior now, to be fair. A couple of hand passes here and there is about it.
Yeah. You had a good win at the weekend all the same, Kevin, though, didn't you? You had a nice old win just looking at the score alone.
Yeah, look, it was Porrick Pearson's. They were probably down a couple of lads, I think, from their senior this year, and we've probably gained a couple. So, like, just junior is very hard to call. Like, you wouldn't know. We're playing Climerdale the next week, and you're like, they have a serious team by all accounts, and look, you just go out and play it, and whoever's there is there, and it's all about, I suppose, it's a bit of a mix, like the old lads trying to hang on to a bit of crack, and the younger lads trying to break through, and sure, look, it is what it is, but like the truth being told, it's I know I was kind of slagging here a few times, but the slagging has gone now as the weeks have gone on, like, and it's tough enough going, and it's a bit of crack, and look no harm.
That's it. Sure, look, we'll kick straight into it, and I suppose no better place to start. I suppose we'll examine the match first, but Behe, the relegation playoff from last Saturday. I was above in a wall myself, and nearly killing myself. I don't think I'll be doing that again anyway, trying to get down to the fucking thing. But Behe 3-13, Kinvara 1-13. I suppose in Kenny Park, strong wind in the first half kind of was in favour of Behe, and they built up a 6-point lead, but Kinvara kind of pulled them back into it, and Joey Gantley hit a first half goal, but Whelan, I'd nearly say Whelan was on Adrian Toohey. He's been picked up by Adrian Toohey, and he was in full forward, and Toohey seemed to be carrying a hamstring, and Whelan kind of went to town. He kind of dragged them back into it, but then just as Kinvara kind of drew level, Porrick Landers nabbed a goal, and Kinvara went all hands on deck then, as they say, and they kind of pushed on, and quick counter-attack then when they probably everyone put forward, and Landers was on hand to finish past Colin Cannon, and that was it. And lo and behold, it's not only was it good enough for a win, but was a score difference as well, kind of, our points for, I think it came down to it by a single point, and Behe are safe, and Kilnadine Leitrim and Kinvara have to do it again. You didn't hear anything from this game, did you, lads? Or you didn't hear any feedback from it? We'll leave the controversy for a minute. We'll just kind of examine the game first.
I didn't hear a lot about it. No, I take Patrick all right to see how they got on, and I heard last minute goal to stay up. So obviously they were breaking all social distancing rules out there on Saturday evening. Probably when he was texting me, but no, fair play. It's a serious win for them. Like, to be fair, like, they kind of, after losing the first game, like, they were kind of probably nearly odds on to go looking like relegation, and now they're the team that's out of the three. So yeah, I wouldn't like to be in that mix now. Kinvara, yeah, it's not going to be easy. Kilnadine Leitrim will fancy themselves. I know they lost the last day to them, so yeah, you were on the wall. You saw most of it.
I think Brian Malai went off injured that first day as well, which would have been a huge blow for Kilnadine Leitrim. Do you know what I mean? Like, he'd be worth a few points alone. But Kevin, you know yourself. Kevin Ellis, who will say, I'll try and say that's that Behe in relegation. They're a different animal, as you know. I think you were struck by as we mentioned already. You were struck by a late sucker goal last year, and again they're well capable of these late goals and digging it out of the fire, as they say.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't really expect Behe to go down. Just from seeing them last year, they're never bet, and I was just listening to the end of it in the radio the last year. I think Colin Cannon came up to take a free, and if they got a goal, they were guaranteed safety. And next thing, down the other end, and Behe got the goal that not only gave them the win, but guaranteed them senior hurling next year. So it's a fine line, but better hard bet, always and ever, like the Gantleys and them lads. You don't get much easy.
No, you said it, and I suppose one player you kind of mentioned, I suppose just kind of a talking point from the game more than anything else was Jermaine came on. Chunky, you were squaring off against him in the junior championship, but just from seeing him come on, he was fairly influential when he entered the fray. He kind of, he was another body up there and kind of took a bit of pressure off Whelan, and he made his presence be known anyway, if nothing else. So he could be an addition for them for the relegation game, we'll say.
He will. So look at Jermaine played wing back for Galway, like, you know what I mean. He's plenty of experience. Played Fitzgibbon Cups, the whole lot. Like, Jesus, he couldn't buy it. Kinvara especially, like, they're growing. They're getting a few young lads. Like lads to me, like Jermaine, like just to be there alone. I know he suffered from injuries or whatever, like, but he's an awful outlet for a defender now, like, that just wants to launch it up, especially when he's up around the full forward. Like, he's very strong in the air. As you say, he obviously took a lot of pressure off Whelan, so I'd say they'll probably look to him now the next day as well. I'm sure the fitness levels probably wouldn't be where they need to be because he probably can't train as hard, but he'd be, relegation, do you know what I mean? We played relegation the last couple of years and I was certainly unfitter than he was the last day, I can tell you that. So it's just one of those games, you get through it, do you know what I mean? Do what you have to, and I'd say he'll probably play another part the next day. Definitely.
By the looks of things, anyway, it's going to be. I suppose we're better touching it here, but Kinvara they've lodged an objection after the game relating to a Beha player who's come back. For people who weren't familiar with the situation, a Beha player who returned and allegedly didn't 14-day quarantine. We'll use the word allegedly there just to kind of cover ourselves, but. It's been told now that the county board are going to investigate the matter, but from what I've been hearing, I'm led to believe that the relegation game is set to go ahead anyway, regardless of this kind of crack going on. And I suppose I'll just offer my thoughts anyway before we go in. Before I get myself in trouble first here, lads. Anyway, so but.
Patrick's not here to defend himself now either.
No, yeah, well, conveniently enough, we must say he actually had his holiday booked before this.
That's all right.
He's actually not hiding. You know what I mean? So he'll have to defend this yet anyway when he comes back on. But but what was I going to say at all? From my point of view, I suppose in one sense I can kind of agree with Kinvara. Like, there's a point of it I can kind of agree with Kinvara. Do you know what I mean? I suppose. They kind of disregard disregard the national guidelines if it's actually true, and this player did happen to this will kind of not adhere to the quarantine rules or quarantine regulations. But another part of me kind of thinks, Jesus, it's a bit late now. You played the game, lads. You know what I mean? Like, why take to the field in the first place if you knew this fella was, if you were really worried about safety, we'll say. Why take to the field in the first place? If that was the concern there, kind of feels a small bit like of kind of looking after your own back and maybe trying to use the rule book to kind of your advantage here. Or any of you guys want to jump in here before I dig myself a grave here?
Kevin, you might have your thoughts on it first.
I'd sort of agree with Dave that if they were that worried about this player, will say that when they saw him there nearly at the time to make a deal of it was before the game and say, we don't feel safe going out. Now, maybe they didn't know he didn't quarantine till after the game and all of that. True. So you don't know, but I don't know. It's messy.
Look, there's a couple of things for me. All right. First of all, I can't see it changing anyway. I just don't. But I do think Baha will get an awful slap in the wrist, and I wouldn't like to put the COVID-19 officer out there either because there will be meetings about it. The questions are to me are going to be fairly straightforward. Like, okay, did this fella come home? Where did he come from? How long did he quarantine for? You're the COVID officer. Why did he play? I also heard, and I don't know. I'm only speculating. Yeah. I don't know, but I heard that the Kinvara lads did approach the referee and said this guy can't play. Now, to me, that's an awful situation. I think it was Liam Gordon that was actually reffing it. But that's an awful situation for the ref because the truth being told, our own government don't really know how to follow their own guidelines. There's loan a ref like Liam Gordon, who's a good ref. I wouldn't like to be him standing there going, I kind of know that he shouldn't be playing, but what do I do? Like, he didn't know. Now, the last thing I'll say in it, was it essential travel? Yes, it was. According to Baha, was it essential? Yes, it was. Did it work out? Yes, it did. So, look, I think he will probably get a slap in the wrist. The club will. I don't know what they'll do, and I don't know the full ins and outs of it. But, like, yeah, it probably does need to be addressed. Simple as that. And I definitely don't know the full answers. I deal enough with the work and everywhere else, like people coming from England and stuff. It's a tricky one. I know they're talking about bringing it down to 10 days and stuff. And was there tests involved? And like you have to think of the safety as well. So look at it. Definitely, to me, it needs to be addressed. But it was a strange one when I heard it. I said, Jesus, that will be interesting. I think it was on one of the national papers as well today. Like, and it starts going like that. I don't think it'll affect the whole relegation thing, but it certainly won't be the end of it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I suppose just on that, I suppose if the players did actually approach Liam Gordon, I suppose that kind of changes it a small bit. I know there's not the Liam Gordon can really do
I overheard that now at the junior game at the weekend by one of the lads, and the truth being told, you know yourself, by the time that story got to Gore down to the woods, when I got to Burtonma, I'm sure it grew legs. But the first thing I thought of was, jeez, I wouldn't have liked to be the ref, like, because so where do you start, like, you know?
Yeah.
You'd ask the COVID-19 officer.
It probably does fall back to the COVID-19 officer, really.
So it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
That's actually rightly true, and that's probably who will probably take the brunt of this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but listen, you know yourselves now in a club, and I'm sure lads involved, so you're probably getting flights home for lads. They're bypassing that. That's a tricky one. Yeah, anyway, I don't want to say any more and get myself in trouble about it anyway. But probably won't be the end of it. But look at the last thing I'll say on it is, you're right though about Kinvara. Like, were they really thinking of the safety issue? If they were, maybe they were, maybe they weren't. But they probably maybe took their eye off the ball a bit. They probably should have just fucking it. The match was going ahead. It was time to forget about that. Now and drive on and stay up senior. But look, that's for someone else to call, not me. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's probably, you know what I mean. It's probably something you kind of nearly need to put behind you now at this point. You know what I mean? Like it's not. You know, it wouldn't inspire you with confidence as a player. Say, you know what I mean. If you're kind of objecting at this point, like they still have a chance to save themselves against Kilnadima. You know what I mean? Like there's still every opportunity that they could be still hurling senior next year. They're coming up against a team they've beaten already in this. You know what I mean? Like there's every chance there. Like, you know, I wouldn't be waving the white flag yet either. You know, in that sense, yeah.
It depends what they're objecting as well. You don't know. Maybe they're just saying, listen, you did this, you shouldn't be doing it. So we're objecting, saying you shouldn't be doing it. Maybe they're happy enough to say we'll take our beating and we'll plough on, but we're not letting this bit go either, because you know you just don't know, like.
And even on that game, Brian Malloy's fitness, he went off the last day, you said, David, didn't you?
Yeah, he went off when Kinvara bit Kilnadima Leitrim. They bet them by 2 points, and I think he went off. I'm not 100% sure, but it might have been in the first half or early in the second half. So he was gone for a good chunk of it, Kevin. Yeah.
Like if he was missing for the rematch between the two again, like I'm sure Kinvara had fancied themselves. You know, he gets a lot of their scores again. I think he like 112 earlier on the year. So
yeah.
That's for sure. Sure, look, we won't dwell on it. We can't do much about it anyway, other than just kind of analyse the ins and outs. We have some weekend of action here coming up, lads. I suppose the 2 semi-finals, and they're probably 2 sets of games that they're probably 2 draws that neither of the 2 teams will have, you know what I mean, they'll have been too upset about either. They'll have, you know, Cappy would have wanted, you know, overly minded drawing Thomas's as long as they didn't draw Lee Mellows somehow, and you know what I mean, like, and Thurlock, I'm sure, won't fear Loughrea, and Loughrea won't fear Thurlock either.
Yeah, well, I'd say my own self, Loughrea probably would have liked to got Capitagle, and I'd say Capitagle wouldn't have minded getting Loughrea. But look, as it turned out, you know, at the start of the year, everyone was talking about Thurlock and Thompson. They've been kept separated, so it's going to be like the underdogs going into both games. To me, is Loughrea and Capitagle. Can both them win? Absolutely. Do you know what I mean? They're not rank outsiders by any means, but I would say the happier of the 2 draws probably are St. Thomas's and Thurlock Moore, to be honest, like, because they've avoided each other and all the talk and everything that's been about the 2 of them.
Yeah. Just Kevin, you've had a bit of experience with Cappy. we won't.
Bad experience.
Yeah. Do you think like somewhere like Pearse Stadium might suit them with the bit of pace they have inside, say with the two Manions and Niall Collins? It's a fine big pitch. I know fucking wind could be a factor again here, like, but I don't really remember them playing in Pearse Stadium over the last few years. Can you remember them?
I don't think they have played in there, to be honest, but like
Yeah.
the size of that pitch, I think Jan Mannion, Donald Mannion will be licking their lips, to be honest. And I don't think there's many cornerbacks in Galway Club hurling that'll fancy going in, picking the two of them up in there. But you said it there, the wind will be a big factor. That's the big negative of Pearse Stadium, that it could be 2 games of like every half. But like if you have a big wind, a team will go out, have 6 or 7 point lead, sit back on it, and whereas your likes of Battenry or Banaslow, you could just have a better 60 minutes, fairer tussle. That'd be the negative on Pearse Stadium anyway.
Yeah, I suppose, Chunky, if Thomas's have kind of maybe a bit of a weakness. I know Fintan Burke has gone back there as well, but maybe the full back line mightn't be blessed with pace either, you know what I mean? If that's one thing Cappy possess, they could do damage, but realistically they'll probably have to bag a couple of goals, really, won't they? You know what I mean, to beat Thomas's.
Yeah, well, I think they'll probably start at the back for me again. That's probably where they got back into the championship for me. They kind of shored it up. They filtered back some of their players and they gave more space to the likes of the two Manions, Alan Dole and lads like that. I just think they won't be overly concerned about we need goals, but they definitely need to be concerned about giving the likes of Éanna Burke, Dara Burke, Oisin. They can't let them lads be scoring 4, 5, 6, 7 points in play. They don't even need goals. Thomas could put up 20, 26 points in Pearse Stadium. So they need to tighten it up and do what they're doing. It'll kind of suit them in a way because they're bunching around the middle. Like Kevin, you'd have way more closer attention to that, but they seem to be bunching it and trying to leave the space to the two Manions. And back to the point as well about the two Manions, who will pick them up. I don't know. I think Thompson are going for 3 in a row now. That they're a confident team. I think whoever's in there at the time being, wherever them lads go, Thompson will have to trust their defenders and say, "Your pick." If it's not working out, they might change it. But I know from Burton over the years, like we rarely know if it was a midfielder like back in the day, maybe Gerard Farrer or lads like that. You'd have Leo Smith midfield for us. We always saw him as someone that he'd do a job for you. Or maybe if it was wing back, you might switch the 2 wing backs, Peasy or someone. You'd have a few dogs like that. It'd be mad. They wouldn't care if they hit the ball. They'd be delighted just to let me pick him up and I'll keep the ball off him for the day. So just on that. But yeah, I as I say, back to the goals. I don't know. I just think they need to keep stay in the game. That's get to semi-finals, the quarters now. I've really noticed it in the junior. Like it's every 15 minutes. Like you don't even talk about the first half now. It's like 15 minutes. We'll come in, have a quick chat. No, we probably get away with it a little easier at junior. You could have a couple of minutes. There's nobody complaining to say, "Come on back out, lads." You stroll over and get a couple of slugs of water or whatever and have a chat and go back. But so I think Cap Tagle will treat it like that. Stay in it for the first 15. Don't let Thompsons get a run on you. Don't let them get a run on you and then meet again at half time and hope back in the wind. You both spoke about it. Jesus. I hope there's no wind in it because there's the makings of 2 cracking games and the truth being told, with the wind in it this year, there was some good games, but to be honest, there was some disaster games, 10 points up at half time and the other team trying to pull it back, and it's a complete nightmare. I would have had them in Athenry anyway, 100% in Athenry. If you want to play the final in Pearse Stadium, play it, but it should have been even Capitaglia, bring them all the way into Pearse Stadium to play St. Thomas's. It doesn't make sense to me, but anyway, I don't decide these things, but it's a pity it's not in Athenry. I think you're allowed a couple in now, 200
in. 200 in, with the golden ticket, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have another 400 on the wall that'll hold 10. So that's why 600 all in. So.
I think, Chunky, you said there about Cappy funneling players back. I think that'll be so important this weekend, not to be given space to the likes of Éanna Burke and Dara Burke up front. Damien Joyce's role has nearly been the most important thing to Cappy. Were bet by Loughrea and they brought Joyce in the next day. And I know, especially against ourselves, he just settles the whole lot down and he set back in front of their half-back line and they probably didn't even use him as much as they could have. He's an option there for the outball all the time. He was in front of me that day. They didn't probably use him as much as they could have. Yeah.
I actually met him money today, and I said the exact same thing. I said to him, I said he was waving the hurl, which of course Joyce he'd say nothing, and he'd give you away nothing.
He'd give away
I
nothing.
was just saying to him, Jesus, from the video you could see him in front of the stand, and he was waving the hurl on several occasions, and he's pointing. And I said it here a few weeks ago. They're going to need him to come back, and he really does. He really does settle it down. I know, David, you mentioned something earlier about possibly having a few injuries as well, so that's massive. If that's true, but Joyce definitely. He'll probably do the same role. He'll just sit back around the midfield and dictate. He mightn't get a lot of ball, but geez, he really does structure the whole team properly.
Yeah, just on injuries, I think from a Thomas's point of view, I think Sherry first is 50-50. He was taken off the last day. They're not, according to reports, he's not 100% sure whether he'd be available yet. And I think Dolan Mannion is kind of in a similar boat for Cappy as well, which would be a big loss. And James Egan there at centre forward, Kevin, you probably would have experienced him as well. He's kind of he's a fierce, hard-working player, really, more than anything else. If anything, he'd be kind of a perfect lad for stopping someone like, say, Shane Cooney from delivering good ball into the Thomas's attack there. He kind of puts himself about a small bit.
Not only stopping Shane Cooney, but he's the most important player for the Mannions in them as well, because a lot of the puck outs are aimed at him, and then you have the likes of your Alan Dolan, Dara Dolan, and the Mannions getting in around him. Like, even if he only brings it to ground, when you have the speed of them lads coming in on the break, then he's hugely important to them, all right? He got the lining, all right, with maybe 7 or 8 minutes to go, but he had a huge influence on the game before that. He's their target for nearly every puck out.
Yeah. Just kind of on it then, like, just looking at what they scored here, there's kind of been a big difference between scoring. Like Cappy they've yet to clear what, I think 20 points this year, whereas Thomas has kind of scored more than 20 points every game. So they're probably going to have to, I suppose you mentioned keeping it tight at the back, Chunky, but they're probably going to have to rack up their probably biggest tally so far this year as well, at the other end at the same time.
Yeah, well, to me, if the two lads aren't injured and they have their full squad, they will need all them lads, though, to be honest. Just back what you said, they're vital. They're two vital players for them. To me, anyway, they'll need both of them. And if they're missing one of them, it'll be a loss. If they're missing two of them, it'll be a big loss. But I just think that they're pretty free-flowing, Cappy, when they get a chance. They haven't played in Pearse Stadium, and there's something about it, like they'll find space that they never found before, especially the Mannions, because they just tend to get it and run with it. And you get it and run with it, you could beat your defender on the 40-yard line in Pearse Stadium, and there might be no one in front of you as a goalie. It's mad, the space that you're going to get in there. So you wouldn't know, and of course the goals. I know they don't fully need them, but if they got a goal or two early, they'll really lift now. And it's time for Cappy now as well. They've been in a couple of semi-finals, and there's only so long you can go on about hard luck stories and this and that. The truth being told, them lads will meet now and they'll say, this is it now, lads. This is DJ, and it doesn't matter who we're playing. They're going to concentrate their own game, and obviously they'll have a couple. I'm sure they will have a couple of man marking jobs for their lads, because they're the underdogs, and you've got stars that you need, the likes of Éanna Burke and lads. You just can't give the likes of him space. Just simple as that. I mean to say, you might have a lad shielding Éanna Burke, but isn't even good enough to shield him, because he'll swing it out over his shoulder, and if it goes over the bar, they'll all go over the bar.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? I remember there was a Petey Smith on him one day, and great man marker, gave him a bit of space, and inside 5 minutes he 2 or 3 points scored. When Petey had to decide, I need to kind of hold this lad with the jersey, I cannot give him 2 yards, so they've got all to do, but look, they'll fancy themselves, of course they will, but it's time now, you know what I mean, to drive on. The one last thing I'd say about Thomas's is, good and all as they are to me, and they're brilliant, and they've players all over the park that could play with Galway, but they still seem to only be winning their games by very, very small margins. And that's the only thing that Cappy will be looking at, saying, do you know what, they're scoring big scores, they're just about outscoring teams, but to me, Cappy will be saying, the Beckline really, it was only 4 points in it, that a game was against Castlegar, 1 point in it. They're not good and all is there. There's something there that's keeping the opposition in it, and that'll be fierce heartening for Capitaglia,
Yeah. I suppose just kind of for Capitaglia, Kevin, it's just there's probably so many players you kind of have to keep an eye on, really. Like you mentioned, like you're nearly related now, but Declan Cronin, like say, if he was to take someone like Ian Burke and James Garvey and Dara Burke, but then you still have your Conor Coneys, your Rushing Flannerys, you have all these. There's so many headaches for Cappy there in that sense, from 8 the whole way up to 15. I think they've all played for Galway at minor or above. Like it's a serious standard of attack that Thomas's do bring to the table.
Yeah, that's just it. Like if Cappy go man marking Ian Burke and they even tie him down, like, and next thing you have Conor Cooney, Dara Burke, and we haven't even mentioned Dave Burke and James Regan at midfield. Like it's. I don't know. Can you even go man marking the Thomas's forwards, because they could just drag you all over the place? You could end up with your full back out midfield. So it'll be a headache for the Cappy management for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Just kind of, we won't spend too much longer on it. Who might get a prediction off each of you lads? Who are you going to go for?
I have to be careful in how I say it. I'm still going to give it to Thomas's, but I think it'll be closer than people think, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same as that. I like look at, as Kevin mentioned there, and we're talking about Thomas's lads all over the park. So I think it's a big day for Cappy, and look at it's there won't be much in it, but geez, you'd be hard pressed not to give Thomas's the nod.
Yeah, I'd go along with that myself as well. So lads, just we'll move on to the second semi-final then. Turlock and Loughrea, 4:30 in Pearse Stadium. Their last meeting was probably back in 2017. It was very different circumstances. It was a relegation playoff. Bit of controversy that time wasn't it, with the Jimmy Holland saga, but we want another one with Walk Winter. Wouldn't be Galway Championship without a bit of drama and crack off the field. But I suppose two teams that Loughrea got over the line that day, but I suppose they're kind of teams that have kind of changed a lot in kind of where they players wise since maybe not players wise, but maybe positional wise maybe, and both of them seem to have brought through a few as well. And they're both of them are very different places now than maybe 2017.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known an awful lot about Loughrea in 2017 because all them new lads were kind of coming on the scene. But they're here now, and they've landed the last day big time. Anyone that didn't know a lot about them, and myself included, all about them now. And the big question for me the next day is, will Turlough be allowed bullied? Because Lee Mellows were bullied, and no matter what way you look at it, I thought Mellows would have bullied Loughrea, because I just thought physically they looked a bit smaller, etc. But no, I got a rude awakening, and Turlough have a lot of good, strong young lads, but they're still young lads, and the truth being told, the next day is a big day for them. Everyone's talking about Turlough more all year. They're doing the job. They're getting better every day. But you know what you're going to get from Loughrea. They're going to go out, and you're not like the likes of Sean Lennon, Sean Loftus, Conor Walsh. This is going to be the fire, Paul Hooban, Ushin, Kyle, Johnny Cohen, these lads, they're going to come out like any Loughrea team that ever came into semi-finals and finals. Like that's the big question for me. Like if things don't go well, they're all in your face, Loughrea. They're able to hurl as well. They're well able to take their scores. But how will Turlough react to this? Because it will come. That's just a fact. It came for Lee Mellows, and maybe the 3 weeks in the trot didn't help them, but they weren't able to deal with it. And the further it went on, the more Loughrea were going to beat them. So, it'll be interesting.
Just kind of, Kevin, from your own kind of perspective, you would have seen Turlough against Sarsfields. What did your own club Sarsfields, what did you make of them that day? Were you impressed to racked up a serious tally of 225? Like any day you're scoring 225, you're probably going to win more than likely.
Yeah, actually, you'd have to be impressed. I suppose I'd be really impressed with the way they went up front. Like Sean Lennon, 7 points, Sean Loftus, 1-3. But even outside of that, their movement was the most impressive part. Burke, I suppose, he done a fine job the same day. He kept Darren Morrissey quiet at the edge of the square. But the rest, the other 5 forwards, I couldn't pinpoint where they were even playing, because every time it broke down, new position, Conor Walsh, Sean Lennon, Barry Cannon, they just kept swapping. And I don't even know how you got time, how you got tying them down, and then move on to the middle of the park and Fergal Moore and Dahi Burke. So it doesn't get any easier, does it?
No, Jesus, that's for sure. Just kind of on Loughrea, chunky. I suppose Jamie Ryan's return will be a huge boost, and the attack was good the last day against Mellows. You were impressed with them. I remember I listened to the podcast afterwards, and like the likes of Neil Carey and Martin McManus
Martin
and Joe
McManus,
Mooney.
to me, yeah.
Yeah.
Martin McManus, I don't think they'll move him out of centre forward, to be honest. They'll leave him there. Neil Carey, like the truth being told, or not Neil Carey, who's back? Jamie Ryan, like he's definitely going to slot in, like no matter what way they look after the game the last day. Where they slot him in now is vital. Maybe corner forward or somewhere. I can't see them. Maybe wing forward. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. They pulled Thomas Hooban kind of out of the fire for that game, and he kind of seemed to go in on Sean Morrissey. Not great strike me as lads. They're going through about 100 game plans and trying to figure out different players, different matchups, different tactics. So they'll have it well sussed out, you know. Like they know a lot of them Turlockmore lads as well, like Jeff Linsky and Shane Cusack and Nigel Murray. Like they would have worked with a lot of the Loftuses and Conor Walsh, and you know they'll have their strengths and weaknesses down to a T. So it's going to be that to me is going to be a cracker as well, like, you know. But as you said there, Kevin, like it's nearly gone that way with all the teams. The movement, it's mad. Like I know with Portumna we used to, but that was old style. You know, you might move from full forward to centre forward or to corner to wing, and there'd be nothing about it, you know. But these movement is just like we played Turlockmore last year, and Jesus Christ, we were in the game, and next thing Dahi Burke went from wing back out to midfield, and it just like. It took off. They were crisscrossing. It was just insane. Like they literally just blitzed us in 10 minutes. And I said, geez, if they can get that right, they're going to be hard to beat. And they will. But
I was actually at that game. I think you were right with them at half time. You were only 3 or 4 points down, but in 10 or 12 minutes the second half, then they just opened up, and that's what they have in them.
Yeah, there were different runners. Dahi was running through the middle, and like as he was running through the middle, the corner forward was nearly running out to pick up his spot. While the play was still going, like it was insane. The movement and crisscrossing, ball skills was good, and they've improved now this year. But that's the biggest thing for me. Like if Loughrea can get in the heads of some of the younger lads, how do they react? Do you know what I mean? It's they can't be bullied. They need to stand up, and I think they will. To be fair to them, but they need to, and they'll expect it. They know what's coming down the tracks, but. It's an interesting Loughrea side, like, you know, because it's completely new from the teams that were involved over the years. Like, you know, it's like even Brian Mahoney now is the only kind of leg still hanging on, and he'd be a big asset now. I don't know how his hand is. He was in a cast for the Kilbacon lads, so if him being back now would be a big boost as well. Like, you know, he'd be very good now with more than we were talking earlier on about Damien Joyce, you know. Bit of experience there, especially in Pearse Stadium. He's been there enough of times and helping out the defence, coming in as a sweeper, stuff like that. He'd definitely be on their top 17, 18 hurlers. So be interesting to see if he togs out as well.
Yeah, and say someone, Kevin, like maybe Anthony Burns, who was quiet the last day. I think he was being shadowed by was it Stephen Barrett, I think, who done a fine job with him. But like he's had a fine championship up to that point as well, and he's another player for Loughrea that we haven't really mentioned yet. Or you know they've O'Brien there on the bench as well, and even Emmett Mahoney, who's a fine hurler, you know what I mean, as well. He could pick off a few points. Like Loughrea have plenty of threats all over the field themselves. Like, you know, they won't be too worried about what Turlock will bring, because they can cause plenty of headaches themselves.
Yeah, it just shows you the strength and depth Loughrea have when they can take Anthony Burns off after 20 minutes the last day. I remember looking, wondering, like, is he injured or what's going on? But no, it was just he wasn't going well, so get him out of there. But yeah, Shane O'Brien came in and he done well, and that's it, just got out of Sean Sweeney coming on the half-forward line. They seem to throw Thomas Hooban in there for the bit of power the last day, and then bring in Sean Sweeney to add to it. A big move for Loughrea for me was putting Johnny Cohen back full back. Like, he had been up the field in other games, but he really seems to have settled it all down back there, and his experience and everything has been huge for them. On Jamie Ryan, I think he'll definitely start in the half-forward line, because he just gets a free roll from there and he picks the ball up everywhere and carries it up the field. He's nearly the most important man in that role, really.
Yeah, what I was thinking is they might just name him corner forward, and like you, I think that role suits him better. He'll definitely won't be hanging in around the goals anyway, that's for certain.
No. But if he was to start centre forward, say hypothetically speaking, like someone like Jamie Holland doesn't want to, you know what I mean, he doesn't really want to come out the field and, you know, be dragged all over. He kind of wants to sit in the pocket and pick up the ball and, kind of deliver ball in there. But just on, I suppose, on that half back line, like Turlock have a half back line as well that can pick off scores from distance. Like Kevin Hussey seems to be in the form of his life, and there's been plenty of talk of Daniel Loftus getting maybe getting a look in with Galway as well. Like it's a seriously imposing half back line Turlock have as well. It'll be a serious battle with the likes of, say, McManus and who else will be there? Maybe Emmett Mahoney and like a few more of them lads. It's going to be. It could be the line in the field where the game could be won and lost really more than anything else.
Yeah, the battle between Kevin Hussey and I'd say Jamie Ryan, I could see them matching up. I think that could have a huge bearing on who wins. If he went in centre forward, I think you're right. I don't think Jamie Holland would be following him all the way up the field. They have a plan B in place for that, but I think the management team of Franny Ford and Sir Donnellan and Joe Heschen will probably have something in place there anyway. They won't be letting him roam around free for the day anyway.
Just on that, lads, I've seen a bit of now Turlock more the last while as well, and if say whoever is centre forward, I'm not sure I'd be pulling too deep if I was centre forward and Jamie Holland. I know you're saying he likes to sit in the pocket, but I see Fergal Moore seems to drift back as well, and Jamie Holland is able to go forward. He's able to pick off a point off both sides. I know as previously playing centre forward, you drift back a bit. It's great if you're getting on ball. But if you turn around and your sixes after potting over 2 points, things get very frustrating very quick, and the head can go down. So Jamie's able to play a ball, and I've watched him go up taking hand passes back off Dahi Burke. So they'll need to be careful with that. Not to be telling them their business, but they need to be careful because Daniel Loftus went up once or twice this year as well, and he picked off a couple of points. So it's just shows the class that Turlock Moore have at the minute, really. When you've half backs like that, we're started talking about Hussey and how good he is, and we're gone on to the other two lads how good they've been as well. They're blessed at the minute, and they're very strong in that area. But look, if Loughrea will be confident, and they have to be. They're in a semi-final. That's the way it is.
Yeah, there's plenty of household names on the line, Kevin, as well. It's going to be a fascinating battle tactically. I'm sure they're, as Chunky already mentioned there a while ago, they're probably, chalking up different plans all week about this lad, and this lad, and you know what I mean? I suppose when it comes to the day, though, sometimes it can go out the window at times, you know what I mean? It's not what you expected. The other team doesn't expect how you line up. It could be one or two could be in for a few surprises here or there.
Yeah, I'm sure both managements are trying to concoct some sort of a plan to throw out the other one. But going back to Pearse Stadium again, and sort of go out the window if you arrive in and there's a gale going straight down the field, and next thing, Loughrea will definitely, they love to suck everyone back the field. That's what they do. And I know last year I saw they left McManus inside 1-on-1, and he's just a nightmare. His work rate is unreal, side to side. They hit the corners and he gets onto it. So if they do that the next day, pull everyone out, leave him in there, it'll give the Turlock full backline a headache, Ronan Burke or whoever's in there, Mark Murphy. So there will be plans in place, all right. So, but the weather, unfortunately, I think will have a big bearing on what way it goes.
Yeah, you didn't hear what it's promised like yet or anything? I didn't even check myself.
Right, but sure, isn't it always breezy in there anyway?
Well, yeah.
5 kilometre breeze, acting like a 100 kilometre one. But back to the Loughrea tactics. One thing for me, I can see them doing is that I don't know, they could be wrong, and maybe it's just a perception, but they're going to try and target the Turlock Moore full backline, and they're going to try and create the space. I know we're talking about Jamie trying to keep deep in that, but he'll have enough to do out the field. But that's definitely going to be whether they isolate 1-on-1, as you said, like they did before, or it would be 2-on-2. Probably won't be 3-on-3, but they'll certainly be trying to get ball in and test that Turlock full backline, because it's probably something that hasn't overly been done yet this year. And to be fair to Ronan Burke especially, he's probably had one of his better years. He's been getting the better full forwards all year. So I don't know where the full weakness is in it, but that's definitely one area they'll be trying to avoid their half back line anyway. That's for certain.
Yeah. I suppose Turlock, they haven't. It's really now. You touched on it before, Chunky, but it's almost like a feeling. Well, not now or never, but Jesus, 30 years since they made a final. It's for this group of players now. They really should be delivering probably on the day and reaching the county final and just showing us how good they really are. It's time to deliver now, really, isn't it, lads? To be honest with you,
they do. They need to get to a final anyway. I feel, the semi-final last year and probably didn't do themselves justice. Thomas has had them they were 8 or 9 points up at half time. Now they brought it right back to a point, I think, at one stage, but they probably do need to take the next step now and at least get to a final this year anyway.
Yeah. So on that, can we get predictions out of you lads again? Will we?
Well, I very similar for me for the last game. Like I'm going to go with Turlough for the simple reason I said all at the start of the year. Thomas's were my number 1 and Turlough were number 2. Probably in the next 3 and 4 is the likes of Loughrea and Cappy. So it's no major surprise there. Turlough for me by very close, very close.
Kevin?
Yeah, it's boring, but exactly what Chunky said. At the start of the year, probably the top 2 were Thomas's and Turlough, and I suppose there's no point in going deserting them now and they're at the semi-final stage. I see them coming out by a couple of points again. Yeah.
Same as just we're very bored this week. I think with the same as myself. But yeah, so just kind of Saturday then. This is where Kinney Park. This is this year's semi-finals, the Intermediate Championship. I suppose this is probably a repeat of last year's semi-final in Kilkenarren and Turlough. They're out first. Like we just spoke on Turlough game. Jesus, we said it so many times before, but Jesus, it's some achievement to be going this far in the Intermediate Championship when you're going as well in the senior as well. I suppose for Kilkenarren, speaking of teams pushing on, it's probably time for Kilkenarren now to actually get over the line this year after being beaten in the last 2 finals. Last year's game, I think at one stage, Turlough were 13-10 up late on, but Kilkenarren pushed on near the death, and I think they ran out 16-15 winners. A close enough game, but I suppose I don't know how much you've seen of them, Kevin. Have you seen much of the Intermediate Championship this year? Kilkenarren, to me anyway, and I don't know about you, Chunky, but they've looked at kind of a cut above the rest.
Well, for me, I can't fully agree with you. I watched their game the last day and I wasn't overly impressed by them against Kilbeaconty, and the Turlough were outsiders in this game, and I'd argue how much outsiders that have them. Like someone was telling me they're 2-1 or 3-1 to beat Kilkenarren. I wouldn't have it that way. Maybe I'd have Kilkenarren slight favourites, but I think Turlough are very good, and I think Turlough believe they can win this championship. And I think Athenry might have done it back in the years even before us. Did they win a senior and intermediate, or did Crowell come up the same year as losers at the intermediate? I could be completely wrong, but I think Athenry did win the senior and intermediate in the same year. It's not beyond Turlough, but I give Turlough a massive chance. The great management team, they're serious forwards, they're very good backs. I saw a lot of them last year. Lads weren't listening to me, and I told them Turlough probably one of the best teams I watched last year. And the only thing I'll say is I haven't seen an awful lot of Kilkenarren. I saw them against Kilbeaconty. They didn't look overly impressive to me, to be honest. Kilbeaconty were decent enough, but no one has really stood out in the Intermediate Championship this year. Like even Turlough got a good hiding off Collimer in the last game, which was a bit of a shock to me. So I just see that game a lot more even than lads are saying. I give Turlough a great chance. Now maybe there's a lot more in Kilkenarren than I saw the last day, but you can look back at last year, look back at the year before, and say people have this perception that they should have won last year, they should have won the year before, but that's not always the way it goes. You see with the likes of Mayo, it's every year is a different year, and someone else will come along, and so they'll need to perform if they're going to win. That's the only thing I'll say. But they have a young lad playing, and I should know his name, but I don't. He's only a minor, I think, in the forwards. He came on the last day. I think he even went on the freeze for Kilkenarren.
It's a Connaughton, is it?
It could be, yeah.
Well, Connaughton.
Yeah. To me, he needs to start now because they're in the county semi-final, and bringing him on for 20 minutes to save the day, it might be too late. He's probably their best forward, I'd say, even ahead of some of the other lads from what I saw now the last day. So that's one observation I'd make about the Kilkenarren lads. They need to probably play their strongest team. I know he's a young lad, and Turlough will be well revved for lads like him, but the truth be told, he looks a class apart now, that young fella. So they probably need to start him, but I give Turlough a massive chance the next day.
Yeah. One big thing on it though is if Dara Whelan's red is upheld, I think he's a huge loss for Turlough. He's brilliant midfield for them.
Yeah.
That could have a huge bearing on it if he doesn't get that.
I thought he was back now. Is he not? Did he get it?
Did they appeal it?
Geez, I heard he was playing, but I could have got misinformation because if he's not playing, like you said there, he was their best player probably last year.
He's brilliant.
He was wearing number 4 now most of the games I saw him, so it was hard to figure out where he was actually playing. He looked like he was kind of playing midfield for most of the games, and geez, serious operator. Yeah, probably close now to maybe playing with their senior team, I'd imagine, like, or maybe there's something going on there that he's not, but he'd make any other senior team in the county. Anyway.
I saw him again, our under 21s now down in New Inn earlier on the year against Sarsfields, and he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And
okay, so he's young enough, so
yeah, he is. Yeah, if you were to tell me he wouldn't be on their senior team, then I'd be saying there's something wrong there.
Yeah. Oh, he was brilliant last year now as well. But if he's out, then it's Kilkenny 100%.
That'd be my thinking as well.
If he's playing, I'd go against the grain, and I think Turloughmore could overturn them.
Okay.
The thing I like about Turloughmore is they use a couple of the intermediates from last year, so it's not a stale team. They've Conor Shaughnessy and a couple of more lads in now, like, so they've kind of freshened it up a bit. So it'd be, jeez, I don't know. It's some club to be able to have such a strong senior team, intermediate, junior B, junior C, like, but they have them and fair play, and they're going strong.
Yeah, just to lose, like, so say Murphy, the cornerback, like say Brian Conley, Jeremy Mullen, Barry Kenlon, a lot of clubs wouldn't have been able to cope. Kevin, he played them. What was it? 2 years ago now in the Junior A final. Like, has the team changed much since then? We'll say, like, between the team you lined out against, or is it? Is there a whole raft of changes? I realise, Gary Burke has stepped up to senior Ronan Badger. You were facing players of that caliber at that time, but like, has it changed quite a lot? I don't fully remember the squad, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the spine of the team probably has changed. Like Michael Casterley and Gary Burke and Ronan Badger and them have gone, but a lot of the younger lads, Dara Whelan, and a lot of them are still knocking around, and better they're getting, like, because they're bringing through funds and winning minors and winning this, like, and the thing about Turloughmore is they're nearly used to winning a lot of things coming up along, and they're just confident no matter who they're playing, and they go out against Kilkenny expecting to win. Like, as Chunky said, they might be underdogs in the bookies, but in their heads, they should have bet them last year. And I think there was a debatable refereeing call late on in that game that they weren't too happy about. So they'll definitely have a point to prove this weekend.
That's for sure. Again, we'll go over predictions. Chunky, I think you laid your cards on the table. It was Kilkenny. Was it or Turlough or
Dara Whelan is playing for Turloughmore. I'm going with Turloughmore. And right. Just on what I've seen, a lot of Turloughmore. I haven't seen a lot of Kilkenny, but if he's out, I'd be like Kev. I think he'd be too much of a loss now. He's does a lot of work for them. Now Brian Murphy was playing for them last year as well, midfield, taking frees and everything. Like, it's saying how they've been to just Conor Shaughnessy now, a former serious Galway minor, taking the free. Like, if he was in any other club, he'd be a stalwart. Like,
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. What are your thoughts, Kevin? Who are you leaning towards?
I haven't seen much of them, but if Dara Whelan is out as I think he is with that red card, I think Kilkenny are probably a team that need to come up sooner rather than later now. And I seen them in 2 challenge matches actually earlier on the year, because they played a couple of teams in our group. I was doing a bit of spying, and I was quite impressed with them at times. Caulfield and a couple of them they're good hurlers, and they probably wouldn't be out of place at senior, to be fair. So I'd probably give Kilkenny the nod.
Yeah, and they gave us a first round of the championship with Afton Ride. They gave us an awful hockey in as well. So I got to see them up close and personal, and I was fierce impressed with them that day. Connaughton you mentioned as well, but the likes of, say, David Mangan, Shane Caulfield, Conor Caulfield, and even Ian McLean, who stepped up. Like, Jesus, he's a serious operator at intermediate level, and for that reason, and probably, I just think that it's time for them to do it now. And I think just that experience of even the last 2 years should stand them in third time lucky, and I'm going to go with Kilkenny myself. So, and just on to the final game then, 4:30, Climber maybe sort of a surprise package in nearly making it this far. Well, maybe not with the quarter-final draw, but overcoming Turlough maybe might have been a bit of a shock up against Mike Cullen. Chucky, you'd be familiar with the Climber, Leslie, be neighbours, and I think you were saying the last day a few of your relations are on it, or relatives on it there,
David Daly's there and Jason Broderick and taking frees and stuff. No, they're good side, and to be fair, I wouldn't know an awful lot of them, but they're a good side. They have a nice mix of youth and a nice mix of experience there with Andy Carey and Owen Fahey and stuff able to hold forth. Like, the boys are seasoned enough campaigners. I said it all along now for the last 4 or 5 weeks. They remind me a bit like Kinvara last year. So lads need to be wary. It's not a competition. I haven't seen anyone stand out really that much in it this year, like, beating teams well and that impressed. So Clymer going to give themselves a great chance. They see this as a great opportunity. Castlegar, they're a good side. They got over them. I think extra time was 9 points to nothing. So the confidence levels are going to be up now, Clymer. But before the year started, I would have tipped Mike Cullen was the one team that I kind of tipped to win it out. But I haven't seen a lot of them. I saw them against, was it, who they played the last day? Ahascragh-Fohenagh. I wasn't overly impressed with them. That's just, to be honest. But a lot of games in Ballinasloe are not a true reflection of some teams as well. I know that sounds a bit mad, but it's totally different now to the Pearse Stadium or at the Rise. It's a lot more open hurling. So you'd have to think Mike Cullen will win as favourites and be stronger than Clymer. But Clymer give themselves a great chance. They have a great goalie. I keep forgetting his name, but they have a serious goalie out in Clymer as well. I'd say he wouldn't be far from the Galway setup. Is he not O'Hara? I can't remember. I'm not going to try, but
he's a serious puck at the ball anyway. Jesus, he can drive it.
Actually, Owen Fahey was going to take a free there against Castlegar, and I seen him jogging out, and he was kind of pushed him out of the way, like, and he put it down from just outside the 21. He hit it over the bar.
Yeah.
Serious man under the like a goalie to me is awful important at that level. Like, a lad that's agile, good shot stopper, good puck outs. He's very good at general play as well. Like, he's coming out with the ball and he's finding men. So they'll be confident. If Carey gets going full forward, like winning ball and laying off ball to the young lads, they can take scores. So that game will probably be closer than people think as well. Mike Cullen, as I said, they're probably going as favourites. But from what I saw, Mike Cullen and Clymer, I think Clymer will give themselves a great chance. But like we said about other teams, they need to know. They need to step up. Like, there's no point in being nearly every year, and talking about it and wondering about it. They need to drive on now, and like, they shouldn't be fearing Mike Cullen. That's my own view. They should be going out and giving a performance now and trying to get over the line.
Yeah. How do you see this one playing out, Kevin? Or what are your thoughts?
I saw a little bit of it the last day. I think a good bearing on it'll be if Niall Mannion is back for Mike Cullen. He's full forward with them there, and he's very good. He's a right good inside forward. I think he was missing the last day. Was it a hamstring injury? Was it? Or
yeah.
If he's back, I think the spine of their team is probably that bit better in terms of Matt Donoghue full back and Ian Noon centre back, and then with Niall Mannion up front. I think adding in the couple of minors there that seem to be putting up good scores to them, I'd say Mike Cullen might be that little bit stronger.
Yeah, though they were lucky though to overcome Ahascragh-Fohenagh the last year. There's a lot of talk about that at that controversial point. Speaking of controversies, I don't know. You didn't. I suppose there's not really a lot you can take from it now anyway. But still, like someone like Andy Carey coming back has really kind of revitalised Clymer, as you touched on earlier on. Like, he's been a huge boost to them there this year, and he's a real outlet at full forward for them. Yeah, Chunky.
Yeah, he was brilliant in the first half anyway, especially the last day. Down in Ballinasloe, I mean to say, like, brilliant now. Like, he was winning the ball, but his laying off the ball was excellent, to the younger lads running through. So he kind of went out of the game all right in the second half, and maybe got going a bit more in the extra time. But he looks lean now, and he looks fit. And Kerry always said hurling, like, and he'd be a handful now. Jesus, like, he's a monster of a man. Have you ever stood beside him? Like, and he'd be a handful at that level now. As you mentioned there, Kevin, when you mentioned the spine, like a Mike Cullen, like, you have Ian Nunes back now playing centre back for Mike Cullen, like, so they've obviously gone trying to strengthen their half back line. I think Mark Lydon might be their midfielder wing back as well, and Matt Donoghue. So, like, just they're all good, strong, experienced players at that level. Like, so whether it's good enough to get over the line, I don't know, but Niall Mannion, if he's back, massive addition. But yeah, like I said, Mike Cullen are probably hot favourites, but Clymer, they're, as I said, they remind me of Kinvara last year. Like, no one gave them a chance. They should have been fighting relegation. Next thing, they got out of the group. Now they're in a county semi-final, and who knows? As I said, it's not like there's any teams like really standing out. So they'll give themselves a right good chance, and I think the pubs are opening Monday week, so if they do manage to get over Owen Fahy there as one in Portumna and Cashland, there'd be no social distancing in that place if they got the cup back there. Anyway.
A big thing I think for Mike Cullen is the way they were caught in last year's semi-final. I don't think they turned up at all again Aircourt. I know I'd be friendly with one or two of them there, and I know they were disgusted at the way they showed up. So I know you're saying about coming like Kinvara last year, but I think the fact that Mike Cullen did get caught in last year's semi-final being so poor, they probably won't be taking Clymer lightly at all this year.
Yeah. I think as well there was a couple of them playing football. I know they're still in the football semi-final as well. I don't think there's as many involved. I know Mark Lydon is playing football.
Yeah.
I don't think Matt Donoghue and them. Yeah, they're not playing now, so their full focus is on the hurling, and that's a massive thing. I would have said that now up in Rahoon. Rahoon is playing with Michaels, and it's very hard to stay going week after week and stuff. So they've obviously tunnel vision for the hurling this year. So you'd have to think they'll be hard to beat.
Yeah. So Mike Cullen, Chunky, are we going Mike Cullen?
Jesus, I don't like to knock the neighbours now, but being realistic, like Mike Cullen would be. You'd have to think like that they should be trying to get over the line with some of the experienced lads they have, but like I say, they're probably hot favourites. But I'd say a little sneaky bet on Clymer, you wouldn't be doing too bad. I tell you, they're a good side. I'm going to go Clymer.
Come on. Kevin?
I'm going to stay boring and go for the fourth favourite of the evening. But yeah, I think it's Mike Cullen. I think they're probably. Their aim at the start of the year was probably to be back in a county final. I'm not so sure would Clymer have been looking that far ahead. I just think Mike Cullen will have a bit too much.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I'm the same as you. Boring week as well. I'm going to go with Mike Cullen.
The funny thing about it is, I was asked this weeks and weeks ago on some podcast, and I tipped Mike Cullen to win the county final and intermediate, and now they're in the semi-final, and I'm tipping Clymer. On what I saw the last day, I think the two semi-finals are up for grabs. To be honest, Mike Cullen could go out and beat Clymer with 15 points, and I might say, okay, that's the real Mike Cullen that showed up. But the one I saw the last day, I wasn't overly impressed. Was I overly impressed by Clymer? Not overly impressed. I don't think it's been a massively brilliant quarter-final stage, but I'd say there could be two cracking semi-finals. Hopefully, anyway.
Mighty. And sure, with that, lads, we'll call it a wrap. I think we're up and we're not doing too bad in time this time round. Normally, we're running very late at this hour.
Patrick's the problem. I know, well, you're right.
Yeah. I didn't want to say it like so, but yeah. You couple of big games for you at the weekend. Kevin, you have the Camogie, and Chunky, you have the juniors. So best of luck in the games, lads. And as we said before, if you've any compliments or complaints, or well, Chunky, look after the complaints, and I'll take the compliments. If any you want to send the money, you can get him there on Twitter, or I'm sure you can get him plenty. So
leave me alone. That was all I wanted to say.
Yeah, get him in on Cashland if Clymer win anyway.
Jesus, yeah.
You'll have to stand him a pint after backing them there anyway. Jesus, then he'll drink. He'll get a couple of pints out of them anyway, no doubt.
Yeah.
I think there's a few brandies promised to mind the pints.
That's the stuff.
I know. Look, it'd be good. It'd be a great weekend to hurling again, isn't it? To be fair.
For sure. It's a cracking weekend to hurling, really. And sure, with that, we won't keep you any longer, and sure, we'll be back with a review show again. Lads, thanks a million for taking the time out to join us.
Cheers.
And we'll chat soon. Take it easy.